it was beautiful, except for my highly sensitive nature made that come down so painful that I experienced a momentary 2-hour depression of what are we doing here? Why? For the several days that I tried it. And while the ducks were in a row, rather than the squirrels at a rave, I was like, this is not worth it for me.
Welcome everyone to another wonderful podcast and another wonderful day. I must admit, I am excited to do this podcast today. It's been a few, I think about a week and a half since I've done one. And I'm usually going hell for leather doing podcasts left, right and center. But this beautiful lady has come on. She's sufficed by putting up with my nonsense by not knowing anything about her. And she was shocked. But it is what it is, and we'll have a beautiful conversation. And she is the wonderful Sylvia Hall. Are you not?
It is true. So far, it's all very true. I'm Sylvia. I'm excited to be here. I've got some great stories to share, I think, that'll really help. I've taken some notes so that I can remember them all, the things that I really want to share. And I'm excited to jump in with you.
I'm glad. And thank you for sharing your time. We really appreciate it. But in the meantime, we'll start off as we normally do and just let us know what you do within your business to help people be successful, and we'll go from the flow from there.
Okay, so I like to say that I actually waltzed out of an entrepreneur, and I don't really think everybody feels that way about their entrepreneurship journey. And I do think it's important to start with saying that I'm an entrepreneur because, as I like to say, I had a job once and it was the worst day of my life. It's my little joke that those regular 8 to 5, 9 to 5 jobs have never really been a good fit to me. We've got the bright lights. We've got people telling us what to do. We're lacking the autonomy. We're lacking the heart. And so I've always known a couple of things, and that is that I wanted to be a mom, and I wanted to be a very focused, present mom, and that I also was a business owner, and I wanted to have some businesses. And so I do have multiple businesses as a kind of track record, and some of them have created massive success. And I love to share some of the wins, losses, and lessons along those journeys, because I really do feel like we can share so that we can fail forward with one another.
No, definitely, without a doubt. I mean, this is what life should be all about, us coming together and actually just putting everything in the pot and then taking out what we need so we can all go as fast as possible.
Right. Or even, I think there's this idea that if I take a piece of pie, that I'm taking pie from you, but there's ovens all around and there's more pies that we can bake. And so I really do love to live from that collaborative standpoint rather than competition.
Sylvia, I thought there was a reason why I liked you. Already you're talking about analogies to do with cooking, and that's a thing of my own heart. Straight away, I know we're going to cook something up great tonight.
Oh, we're going to cook them today.
Right, so let's break it down very simply. So basically, what position are you in now? I know you've got a few businesses, so just put us in the right position of what's your main thing right now to help.
Yes. Well, we're most known for my company, Lifted Naturals, which is a mood probiotic company. And that's been in business for 7 years. And I started that based on my own struggles with mood after having my second child, just feeling like there had to be a better way to feel better. And I started to study the gut-brain connection and how specific probiotic strains could impact mood and how our body handles stress, that nervous system support from a gut connection standpoint. So Lifted Naturals is currently, like I said, my biggest success, if I have to say. My husband was able to quit his job as an engineer because of our company, Lifted Naturals. And that was a really big dream come true because, as I said, I always knew I wanted to be a mom, and then I wanted to be a business owner, and I wanted to be home with my kids. I knew that from the bottom of my heart, and yet also a passion for creating, making an impact, the something from nothing concept of entrepreneurship and creativity really has always just lit me up, truly just like enthusiasm, like a match that I can come up with something that did not exist. And so I've continued to do that through a few other companies. I have Honeypot Publishing. We make coloring books and other gratitude journals. And then I'm also in the midst of launching my personal brand, which is really kind of putting everything I've learned from Lifted, Honeypot, motherhood, everything along the way as a life coach, which I also was doing before Lifted, and kind of making it into bite-sized morsels that people can get inspired and really step into their life in a way that maybe they know they could be doing, but they're not. So like that idea of feeling stuck, nice to meet you, let's get you unstuck.
So how do you keep the balance between everything? So you're obviously your priority is your family, your children, and it's always been the core, all right? So we get that. But how have you kept that balance between having so many companies going on while having time for your family? How do you juggle that?
So really, I love to give from the overflow. So the only way that I can actually, so I say my family is a priority, but it really can't be that way. It always has to be filling and fueling yourself first, because from that full cup, from that overflow, I can love on them and I can serve them in the way that I want to. So it sounds like they're the center, they're the top priority, but actually it's always got to be me. It's always got to be that ability to stay energized, stay fulfilled. And so the synergy of the businesses, which really do light me up, it sounds like they would take, right? The businesses would take, but everything I've learned about business is that if it's taking, then it's probably not a business. You might be self-employed. There's a big difference. So I love to share that difference, which really is that self-employed requires your hands on the spoon, stirring the pot. Here we're cooking again, right? And being a business owner, you just let it cook. Business owner, it's a crock pot, okay? So if you're a business owner, you can throw it all in and put the lid on and walk away and let it cook. So I really have learned that key difference, which is that I create leverageable, systemizable things, because I know that that is how I'm able to stay fulfilled, stay energized, feed into my family from that overflow, create more in my businesses from the overflow. And one other very important thing is, you say, how do you manage all of that? There's so many different businesses, so many different, well, I get bored very easily. That's a confession that has always been true for me. In fact, I still have family members that say, like, do you remember how you just walk around like, I'm bored? Like, I love a lot of stimulus, a lot of action. But for me, it really comes to the creative action, not necessarily the type of like, skiing and traveling and that's not really the action I look for. I look for an action that is creating change through what I'm able to manifest, and then the impact that it creates whenever I see someone else benefiting from that.
And do you know what? I'm glad that we're having this conversation, because it is so true. It's more important. And I have said this a few times on the podcast. You have to be selfish to actually be able to give. Because the thing is that you can give so much, but if you're not fulfilling yourself, then you cannot give what you do not have.
And if you give so much and you don't give to yourself, you become resentful. And I see so many people giving from this place of, don't you see how much I'm giving? Don't you appreciate it yet? Like, okay, that's not the heart space giving that the world wants and needs. You fill that cup up, you find ways to bring your own joy into the world. And I think that's actually the hardest thing that people deal with, is when you say, well, what do you want? And they don't actually know. It's that I don't know what I want, because I'm always giving to others and I'm always putting others first. And it's a little bit of that people pleasing tendency. And it's a little bit of that martyr, like the service of others. But really, if we're resentful, nobody benefits from that type of giving. And so by prioritizing our own joy, our own excitement, asking ourselves, what lights me up? What am I here to do? What can I give in a way that feels like receiving? Because really, life is a game of giving and receiving. And when I'm creating, whether I'm making a joy journal or whatever I'm making, I am experiencing the ebb and flow of the game of life, which is giving and receiving.
Yeah, exactly. And everything needs to flow. If you don't have things flowing, then you cannot receive or give. And I believe that. I'm a Buddhist, so it comes from the core of everything actually has to be moving round in circles.
Yeah. And I think
Okay,
so many people, I think they struggle with receiving. I really do think that, back to that point of giving, like, but how does it feel to receive? Can you receive a compliment? Can you receive a gift? Can you receive a helping hand? And so often we reject that, not always consciously. I think a lot of times it's subconsciously. It's like, that's uncomfortable. Now I'm in my feelings and I don't want to be. So really, like, to elevate to the next level, it doesn't mean giving more. It actually might mean opening your ability to receive.
No, you're totally right. I mean, I was in that situation, Adam. I'm a giver, I'm a helper. But I found it very difficult to take compliments to receive. So that could be compliments, that could be money, it could be anything, but to receive. And not until I understand you have to give to receive and receive to give, and you have to keep that flowing for things to work. Then I become much more comfortable in that fact. So you're totally right what you're saying. And I also, like I said before, it's very important to actually put yourself first, because another thing I used to do way back in the days, I used to give and sacrifice from my point of view, which is the wrong way to think about it, right? You would sacrifice. And you really need to look after yourself before you can look after people. And my dad used to say that, you have to have a halfpenny, which is British old money, before you can give a halfpenny. So I used to think as a child, what are you talking about, Dad? You have to have a halfpenny. So you're totally right. You have to have before you can give, and you have to give before you can have. It's just a circle. It's just circles. And a lot of people don't understand that, but I think not until you do, then you can be in this world of happiness of receiving and giving at the same time.
Yeah.
Now, I'm interested with your ADHD. Yeah. For a person that's so high-wired and you found your strength, you found your creativity, right? You know what makes you work, and you know what you need for you to actually start winding in a particular way, and it keeps you happy, etc. But was it always that way?
I have this very unique dynamic with the label or my diagnosis of ADD, ADHD, which came to me. I like to share this story, and I haven't shared it a lot. So this is juicy for when I share it to my audience and they say, I didn't know that. But it was when my children were little, and that was what I would easily say was the hardest time of my life and the most beautiful. So I said I fought like heck to be a stay-at-home mom and to be with them. And yet it was the hardest job I've ever had. It was so hard to be home with them all day. And yet we played and I loved them and I would get out of the house and do things. But the constant kind of the touched out, and yet having a harder time finding a longer break of time to express myself creatively. At that time, I was using a lot of writing. I hadn't come up with the idea for Lifted yet, and I had just started to think about maybe I should develop my skill set. So I actually went through a life coach training program. But all around this time, I was just feeling a lot of brain fog, a lot of irritability. I would say my desire for support came from the irritability of, being touched on and being home with the kids and feeling like I was swallowed up whole by a chaotic environment of toys and clutter. A lot of my tendencies come across as like, okay, I do create order in my home and my life. I have a to-do list and a to-done list that I combine together. And I write down what I've done and what I need to do. And as I'm writing what I need to do, I commend myself for what I've done. I highly recommend this to others. So often as moms, I've got 2 kids. At this point, I've got 3 dogs, 1 cat. It's there's a lot going on. And so there's a lot that's required of me. And so I'm constantly doing a lot of things. And for me, it's very helpful and useful to validate myself through the to-do and to-done list. Momentum creates momentum. But my kids are older now. And so it's a different dynamic. And at the time that I did receive an ADD/ADHD diagnosis, I was overstimulated, very kind of in that realm of irritability. And I was diagnosed as someone that, she said very clearly, I can, the daydream aspect of my childhood where I wouldn't do as well in school because I would just gone with the wind, out with the clouds, right? That's more of the female type of, more common type of ADD, ADHD. And so From that aspect, I was prescribed 2 different medicines to try. Is that okay if we talk about that on the show? Is that
of course.
okay?
Yeah.
Neither one of them really worked well for me, and I'll tell you why, and I'll share more about what I've done instead. But it was a feeling of, for the first time in my life, I went from having squirrels at a rave to ducks in a row on this medication. And it was beautiful, except for my highly sensitive nature made that come down so painful that I experienced a momentary 2-hour depression of what are we doing here? Why? For the several days that I tried it, this was Ritalin. And while the ducks were in a row rather than the squirrels at a rave, I was like, this is not worth it for me. This come down is not worth it for me. And the other medicine I tried was Adderall, and that actually was even worse. I felt like my personality split, and it was very uncomfortable and very unsafe. I took it 1 pill once and never went back to Adderall. Now I'm so sensitive though. And that sensitivity, you could call it a gift and you could call it a curse, right? That's the world we live in. And I use that sensitivity for developing my products for Lifted Naturals because I was trial and erroring different strains of bacteria and noticing how they impacted me. And so the sensitivity of my life is that, is it a gift? Is it a curse? I decide, right? So I choose. So from that time on, I was like, this is not worth it for me. Yes, I can say that I'm experiencing a vast difference, but the sensitivity of the other side effects for me made it not worth it. And so it really became clear to me at that point that there were certain tasks that were harder for me to do, like writing long form content is difficult. Whereas, do I need to make myself that round peg to fit into the square hole, or vice versa, or whatever? Or should I just write short form content, right? Like, I had to ask myself, do I need to become someone I'm not? Mm-hmm. Or can I just be who I am, a bit flighty, a bit, all over the place, a bit enthusiastic in a way that sometimes my kids are like, hey, you're shouting. And then I'm, right, because I get excited and the noise goes up. And there's just different tendencies that I'm like, it's okay. And I felt like rather than embrace side effects from the medicine, I said, I'm going to embrace a more natural way to handle this. And that's kind of been the essence of Lifted Naturals as well. And the probiotics for mood support. It's this idea that some of the mainstream stuff is just too hard on my very delicate system. And so...
Yeah, it's not only that, but the thing is, I think it's important also, as long as you're comfortable with the fact, it's okay, all right, to be different. You don't have to be on this sideline, always, on a balance. This is how you're supposed to be. You're supposed to be in this box. No, I don't believe that myself. I believe we are all very different. We're supposed to be different. It doesn't matter what color you are. We're all supposed to have a personality trait, and we always have something we can bring to the table. Where we're weak in, someone else is strong in, and etc. And it's okay to be flighty. Some people are supposed to be like that. There's nothing wrong with that, as long as you're not killing someone or affecting an innocent being. And look, I have a thing how I live in life. I don't care how anybody lives, as long as 2 things are adhered to. You don't affect a child and you don't affect an innocent being. As long as you're doing those 2 things, I don't have to agree in how you live your life. Your life is your life, right? You're supposed to be happy within your space.
And I think a lot of people that struggle from that depth of, I'm home with the kids, I'm overstimulated, I'm irritated, I would say they would argue back. I am impacting my children. I am impacting my husband. I am impacting them. So to me, this delicate dance of no one knows what the other person is going through. And for some people, the depth of that frustration, they say, I would much rather take a medication that can help me to be a better self. And I'm okay with the 2-hour come down, or I don't have that. Like, some people are less sensitive to that, and that's, wonderful for them.
As long as they're happy with that, if they're happy with the come down like that, who are we to decide whatever? If it's adding value in their life in other places, and that's a small thing to worry about from the come down, and they're happy with that, who am I to say anything? Right. In your case, you felt differently, And as long as you're happy doing it a different way, and you're happy going forward in your life, and it brings great depth to your life, then hey, why not? You know, it's a fine line. You know, there's a lot of people. I try to sit on the fence because it's very easy to try to judge when you haven't been in other people's shoes. It's as simple as, you know.
And and I think everyone's their depth of, there's so many different variables that can impact.
That's right.
And so just having that compassion, and that's why I actually feel very comfortable to speak on a variety of topics. And for some reason, this topic, I feel a little more sensitive to, because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that kind of right, wrong, good, bad judgment, there's just no room for it.
That's right.
Because there's so many variables. And so how can you judge someone and love them at the same time? Yeah. But I do feel like sharing my story of like, hey, so maybe someone else can relate to that. Like, I also felt really horrible, or I also consider myself really sensitive and have a lot of sensory sensitivities that make the medicine just, uncomfortable. And so for me, that's the value I decided I can bring, is like not a judgment and not right or wrong, but simply this is my experience and it has been my experience. And so from those lessons of, I don't need to be somebody I'm not, and allowing myself to be that version of myself, which is perhaps a bit more busy or all over the place, allowing it to be okay. And also commending myself for, like I said, the validation that we all crave. Like, we really, as an entrepreneur, you really do need to learn how to give that to yourself. There's no boss saying great job. There's no, president or principal that's saying you're doing a great job. So the validation does have to come from within. And that's the best kind anyway, right? Because then you're not sitting around waiting for other people to tell you.
No, totally. And I'm glad that you decided to be yourself anyway, because at the end of the day, by doing that, you've allowed other people to resonate with you that's living a similar life to you. I shouldn't say similar life, but similar path to you, which then has helped them thinking, oh, it's okay to be myself because she's okay. She's very successful, or she's very happy, or whatever. So by you actually being yourself, you've actually resonated and you found your tribe out there.
Yeah, I do. I think that I struggle some to see it in that way, because I do feel like when you have these neuroatypical tendencies, you kind of feel like an outsider, no matter what you do. And
you can't help that. It's difficult, but look, at the end of the day, I just put it in simplistic terms. There are billions of people on this earth, right? If you want to do business with them or be friends, let's break it down. If you just want a friend and you just need 10 good friends, I'm sure you can find 10 good friends that resonate out of all those billions of people. Or even from a business point of view, you don't want to be an Amazon, right? But hey, 200, maybe 500, 1,000 customers are good enough. I'm sure you can find 1,000 customers that could resonate with your personality out of 7 billion people. I simplify things. So, but you're totally right. We think very differently, and it's very difficult for us to feel accepted. I get that, but I simplify things and I put it into the scheme of life, what's really happening.
You know what I find fascinating is that I have a subset of people that I feel like are more drawn to me, and it's tending to be women that are like 55 to 70 plus. There's something about women that are my own age that I feel like there's a few that, gravitate towards that energy, but I discuss it with my husband. But you know what that is? Yes, what is it?
Acceptance. You remember, you've accepted who you are. That doesn't usually come from, when you're in your teens or your early 20s. That takes time for that to happen. Right. And so you get to a stage where you accept, look, I am who I am. I'm trying to navigate life the best I can, and I've just got to go forward. So that usually comes through age, experience. So, and that usually hits around about the mid-30s, 50s, 60s. So it's not because you're an old person. but you're a mature person that has just accepted themselves, and you tend to get a lot of people who accept themselves, and it's not just women, it's men too. You hit this age where I am who I am. I may have the big gut and the whatever else, and life has hit me. Worse can happen, right? And I believe it's just, you've got to the stage where people just listen. It is what it is. I am who I am. I'm not a bad person. And it takes time to get to that maturity. And I think that's what it is. I just think, it's just that age where people start to accept who they are.
I think there's another thing too, that once you can be okay with who you are, and you meet other people and you don't try to change them, and yet there's this unique spot of like, of course, I'm not trying to change you, yet I am continually open to expansion and open to growth. So it's this beautiful paradox of accepting who you are, loving who you are, and actually evolving into that next version of who you are without needing to change because you're not good enough or you're not worthy. But instead, it's the most beautiful thing I can do with my life is to learn, to grow, to serve, to unravel old beliefs that are no longer serving me. So I think that paradox can be kind of uncomfortable, but beautiful.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. And that's only come because of the experience. Life is growth. You know what it was like when you was 19. You knew what you was like when you was 29. You knew that, and they were completely different. You changed, you grew. So you have an understanding, well, I will change again. I accept who I am, but there is going to be change and growth from that because our experience shows us we always evolve.
Yes.
And what you're saying is totally correct. And it is beautiful. Once you accept growth, once you accept who you are now, and who you are that potentially could be, then it is a beautiful growing process.
And not from a place of, we need to fix you. You need to, right. It really does require this elevated point of view of course, we're going to grow and evolve and change, because that actually is what makes life so fun and enjoyable. It's like deepening our ability to feel and deepening our ability to see the world in new ways.
It's absolutely wonderful. Let's talk about your ADHD. Let's get nitty gritty. Let's go way back in the days. Now, you've got hindsight, right? Sylvia, you've got hindsight now. You found out later on that you was ADHD, right? And now, you're your own doctor. You're way back in the days. When did your ADHD take shape? Was it in the crib? Was it when you were 3 years old? When you was 5? And when's the aha moment now you look back?
Okay, so this is once again a little bit more of a unique perspective that I think my sensitivity was what created my ADD. So the sensitivity was that the world was kind of a scary, busy, dangerous place. And that my nervous system said, I don't think this is safe. And so, peace out, I'm gonna disassociate. Now, that's not maybe the most popular opinion of why or how it came to be. But for me, I think it has to do with that highly sensitive nature and that just feeling that out of placeness of those deep feelings of worry, concern, even the sensory thing as far as like not wearing jeans or anything too tight or anything too uncomfortable. The world was just kind of uncomfortable. So I wore sweatpants or maybe windsuit pants. The wind didn't stand a chance against me with my windsuit because it was stretchy and comfortable. So for me, that sensitivity of noises and sounds and all of that, I think that really was the catalyst to the disassociation. And I think that is what I call a lot of that daydream. It's like, it's not as safe to be in my body, so I think I'm going to go just into my mind and float off. Mm-hmm. And that actually has led to what I believe to be the cause of headaches and migraines that I've dealt with. Because the body says, you actually do have to be here. You chose this life. You can't just go into the ether. You are not a spirit alone anymore. You are a physical body. You are a spirit with a physical body. And so this desire to escape a stressful situation can only last so long before there are repercussions. This is this is my unique perspective. I'm not saying this is truth with a capital T. This is my lived experience. So if someone else resonates, I'm hoping. Some people say this does not resonate. This is not my truth. It probably isn't, right? But this feels to be my truth as I reflect back on the daydreaming and the headaches, which started at a pretty young age. Headaches are a pain in the body that bring you back to the body, back to the present moment. And when we disassociate, or when we, float off into never daydream land, which is okay from time to time, but if you spend too much time up there, the physical body says, you got to come back. And so my goal has been not to go as far out there when things are stressful, when things are scary, when the world seems unfair or unjust. Instead, just to be in that physical body and telling myself it is safe. It's safe to be here. It's safe to be yourself. It's safe to be who you are. Creating that nervous system safety for me has been a big aspect of healing the headaches that have been a persistent and consistent theme in my life. So to me, that lesson has been a tough one, because I don't know if you have headaches or migraines or have dealt with them, but
no,
they're very uncomfortable.
No, I've been blessed when it comes to headaches and migraines, and not at all. The only thing I have is memory of a goldfish. That's the problem I have, unfortunately, when it comes to the brain. Memory of a goldfish.
Oh, gotcha. So then if you had a headache, you forgot about it, maybe?
Yeah, you know that. If I had a headache, I would have forgotten about it.
The pain and fear cycle, they really latch into each other. So once you're afraid of getting a headache, you can actually cause a headache, because the fear pain cycle is activating itself. And so you can get in a vicious pain cycle. So if you can really bring awareness to that physical body, and for me, movement, stretching, breath work, those are all really great tools to anchor in the present moment, to come back to that physical body, because we're here to be just human. So while I do have a very spiritual side of me, I think I continually do my best to actually focus on my physical side, because we are infinitely spiritual, but we are limitedly physical, in my personal opinion. So I've only been in this physical body 39 years. I'm getting a bit better at it, but the spiritual thing, I don't need to do spiritual work. That is who I am. That is my essence. And so being a physical person in this world is actually what I need to work on. It's okay to feel, it's okay to be here now, and just teaching that nervous system that safety. So to me, there's a direct connection to spiraling ADD, ADHD, kind of where we're not doing the things we say we were going to do. We're not doing the things we know we're capable of doing, and safety in our nervous system, that it's actually perfectly safe to do those things. It's safe to be who I am. That connection to me was taught through the headaches of being in this physical body. So maybe it's useful for someone listening too.
That's actually quite interesting coming from that point of view. So your headaches got so bad, you had to find some way to really manage those headaches. So I take it at first, you use medications first of all.
That's the scary time when you take something and it doesn't help. And then your nervous mind goes, what am I going to do if this doesn't help? And what is there? And that's that fear pain cycle again, as that really highly sensitive person. So meditation and stillness are really great ways for me. Close my eyes, close out the stimulus, get into the physical body, do the breath. And that can really just bring me back into that harmony of a nervous system that feels safe. So as someone that's really inundated in the world, I also sometimes struggle with the dynamic of talking about what you don't want versus talking about what you do want. So for me, talking about headaches, my sister and I actually came up with a keyword. She also struggles with headaches. And we came up with a code word called banana. And we would say, I've got a banana right now, because banana is just a silly fruit. And we were trying to take some of the edge off of the pain of a headache. Even that word, it's like everything has energy. Words have energy. So headache has energy, migraine has energy. Ooh, we don't like that energy because we've played in that energy. So now we say banana. It's a little lighter, it's a little looser. And that's the language you want, lighter, looser, because over with the headaches, you've got tightness, pain, constriction, agony, like all of those words have energy. So what I also have tried to do is talk about more about, I feel loose, I feel light, I feel free, I feel it's just a banana, but it's going away, right? That kind of de-escalates that fear pain cycle, that de-escalates that nervous system reaction to the pain. So using kind of those words as the spells that they are has also been another beneficial hack, if you will.
So I suppose you use the same philosophy, the same mindset when it comes to when you're feeling overwhelmed at certain times, especially with your ADHD. So do you have a certain process to help with certain things when things go way to the left or way to the right? What do you do there?
Outer calm is inner calm. That's the word. Outer calm is inner calm, not calm like C-O-M, but C-A-L-M. So what I do is I tidy. I tidy. And for me, it's very useful. If you clear a space, let's say your dining table is cluttered, clear it. It's like the metaphor, right? It's cleared. You clear the table, then you go find another corner that's cluttered, clear it. And to me, that like you're clearing it, it's a very useful hack. And I'm not talking like extreme OCD cleaning type, like that can be that can also become an unhealthy. And I don't use that term OCD lightly. I use it can become, obsession. I'm not talking about, these perfectionist standards that I think a lot of us deal with. I'm talking about more of just a clearing, an external signal that something is cleared. And for me, that's very useful. So it's easier now that my kids are teens and don't have a zillion toys, right? When they're 2, 3, it's right after Christmas was always the worst because we got the grandparents' toys, the aunts' toys, all the toys, and they all want to spoil them. And it's a beautiful thing. And then I'm like, where am I going to put all this? And what are we going to do with it? And, you got to get rid of the old, but wait, there's so many memories and, choosing what to get rid of and what to keep, that executive function that's required to decide those big things that are like, these are the core memories of my children's childhood. That's big stuff. I've made it through that. I've got teenagers. We've got new challenges. Don't worry. But toys and what to do with all the clutter is not as much of those challenges.
And how did you come across find a solution for that? So what made you think one day, do you know what, to make me feel better, I'm just going to declutter?
Oh, I think it's
you know what it is? I'm trying to help the listeners because they've got to find their own thing. It's different for everybody. So I'm just trying to find out the process that started you off to find out what worked for you.
There's a theory that busy hands calm the mind. And this is not anything new that I've come up with. This is like passed down from women over the course of a lot of years. They used to have to wash the laundry with their hands and scrubbing the dishes and doing all of the making the food and mending the clothes. And I think that the busy hands can really help to calm a busy mind. So for me, it was like, what is the best manifestation of the busy mind? Like, what can I do that will be a benefit? It's kind of like that idea of a blessing or a curse. And so to me, like putting the nervous energy into a project that feels satisfying. So for someone that might be crocheting a dishcloth. And let me just say, my mom crochets dishcloths and they're a very good scrubbing agent.
Interesting. You heard it first here, listeners. You never know. From ADHD, headaches, and now scrubbing dishes, as well as we've been talking about cooking. Well. I never knew it was going to happen.
Allow me to say that I think the art of homemaking, yes, business is important to me. And I love business because I love impact and I love abundance. So if I can make wealth for my family, which creates ease and flow, and by creating impact in the world through my creations of my mind, like that's the ultimate adventure, right? So that is a satisfying endeavor. And in order to be the kind of mom I want to be, the household flow of managing the food that we have in the home, the drinks, the meal planning, like that is like a full-time job. And I just want to commend anyone out there that is a homemaker, that is running the home. That is such a big job that creates harmony for all the people that live in your home. So if you haven't been commending yourself enough for that role, I just want to take a moment and say, you're doing a great job. This work matters. It is a beautiful art and science to be able to do it. Great job. Keep it up. Don't forget to validate yourself.
Listen, I've said it for years, even when I was a teen. As far as I'm concerned, the most important job is when looking after the kids. You know, a lot of the men in those days, you know, it was, you know, the woman stays home and the man goes to work, and then he comes back from work and he has his feet up. And I'm thinking, what are you talking about? You've had a break, you know? To do the home thing is so difficult, you know, to work the kids and make sure the home, the food is cooked. And your job it's not a 9 to 5.
Yeah. But there's the paradox too. It's so hard, and yet for some of us, there's nothing else we want to do, and yet we're also hanging on by a thread because it is so hard, and yet I don't want someone else to do it, or, you know, for various people, various reasons. That's why I always say, if you can be the best mom you need to be by going to a job, then you should do that. And if you want to be the best mom you can be by being home with your children, and you can find a way to manage that, then you should do that, right?
Yeah, you've got to find your skill set. What's best for you when it comes to skill set? But I still think, you know, doing the home thing is definitely difficult. And I love it. I must admit, I love being around the kids. I love, you know, having the kids next to me while you clean the dishes, get the kids involved. All of that, I love that. Maybe I should be a stay-at-home dad. Maybe that's my thing. But if I could have, look, I'll tell you a secret. If I can have a football team, I would. But that's another show for another day. I love kids. There's no two ways about it. My 2.5-year-old is just amazing. But anyway, enough of her. Otherwise, I'll end up speaking about her purely. So when it comes to your business, so where are you at the stage now? I know you said that your latest business and what you're doing, but are you coaching other people? Are you trying to help people build their own businesses and build their own spaces, etc.? Where is your passion at the moment being pushed mainly? So
if I can, I'll take a quick step back. Before I started Lifted, which was about 7.5 years ago, I was growing a one-on-one coaching practice, and I was sharing through, it was mostly via phone, and I was helping with mindset, energy, goal setting, all of that. And I really began to feel kind of tied down by that way of being, which was on a phone in my home, kind of trapped. I like the expansive feeling of time freedom, creativity freedom. And so from that place, I used what I had known and what I did and didn't like to grow Lifted, which is a product-based business, very different from a service-based business. And so now, full circle, where I'm yearning to get back in touch with helping people the way I was as a coach, but I've learned so much with my product-based business, Lifted Naturals, that I've kind of come full circle, and I'm gearing up to launch a personal brand of that I've been kind of just like, what do I feel like people could really use, and how could I really help them? And so it is going to be based around digital products. And I'm working on my first course. It's going to be called the Frequency Framework, helping people get unstuck. And that's going to be a 10-day email challenge. And from there, I have an idea for a monthly club where I'm, encouraging people. We're celebrating wins. We're inspiring one another, and just it's a space for community, creativity, connection, and growth. And then beyond that, I have a few ideas for some digital audio downloads, which people can listen to and really tap into the power of our subconscious mind. Because for me, the biggest, most important aspect that we can ever work on is our identity and the way we view ourselves. So one of the reasons I do think that I've been able to create the success that I have is based around how I view myself, my identity, and my storytelling capabilities within my own mind. Now, I'm not saying I don't occasionally have negative self-talk or that sort of thing, but I'm able to see that it's a story. And I like to envision like 10,000 pairs of glasses on a table in front of me. And if you pick a pair up and you put them on, you see the world a certain way. But if you put them down and put the other pair just right next to those, and you put those on, it's like a whole nother world. And I think that is the power of storytelling, that we can really view ourselves and the world in any way that we could possibly dream up, simply by trying on another story or another pair of glasses. And so for me, that subconscious rewiring of your identity is always worth the time, effort, and energy for mindset, energetics, and really tapping into who we really are and who we're here to be. So the short answer is no more coaching, I don't think. I really value my time freedom more than almost anything, because that is how I keep my cup full, is by making space for things that matter and that I can really connect to that inner creativity. But I do have this strong pull to get back into that personal development offering, and all of that will be found and is found at sylviahall.com.
And when is that going to be interactive? When's that going to be up and live?
So if you go to that website now, you can opt in. There's a freebie I have called The Confidence Secret, and it is a short write-up that I did. Most everything I offer is a short write-up. Why is that? That's how my brain prefers it. So I love this wham pow inspiration. We're not talking like long winding emails, but instead really just weaving words in a way that makes you feel a transformation, because I think people have plenty of information, right? We've got information out the wazoo, as my grandma would used to say. Yes, information overload. We don't need more information, but we could sure use a little transformation. And so I always try to just infuse my words with that kind of energy. So The Confidence Secret was that. It was kind of my first go at a wham pow transformative email. And then from there, that puts you on my email list, and you will then be the first to know when the frequency framework is live. And I'm getting close to it. I try to do a couple of things. If I can share a couple of hacks that work for me for getting work done. I use something called trigger music, and I learned this from Ian Stanley. And what that means is I have a playlist on Spotify that has certain music that I only listen to when I'm writing.
Okay.
Trigger music. So I put the music in, and here I go. Like, it's like I'm locking in. And sometimes it really works, and sometimes I'm like, come on, trigger music, help me focus, right? And so that's very useful. And additionally, I find it's very useful to do two other things. One is the proper movement. So just kind of like some stretches, some different left, right hemisphere, waking up the brain so that it's ready to do my bidding. And then additionally, a very useful hack for me has been to have a balanced snack. And I found a snack that works really well for me. I'd love for your listeners to test it out. For me, it is cheese and orange juice.
Cheese and orange juice.
Yes, because we got the protein, the fat, and the sugar. And you put all that, and you just have a little cheese and orange juice. I'm not talking a big glass, just a little glass, which I'm not afraid of sugar. Some people are afraid of sugar. If you look up, type it in, what's the primary source of fuel for the brain? It says glucose. So I think we've been taught to fear sugar, and I think that's all wrong, but that's a story for another day. What I do notice is if I just have sugar without the cheese, I don't feel as well. So I like the cheese, which has the fat and protein, plus the juice, which has minerals, nutrients. And that for me is the lock-in snack to really help me get to cooking with my writing.
Interesting. And I like the whole situation with the email where you keep things short and snappy, because I must admit, there's people, especially now they've got AI, they do these long pillar contents. I don't have time to be scrolling down a page. Do you think I'm going to spend my time sitting reading for the next 10, 20 minutes?
Right.
There's too much, as you said, there's too much information. Get to the point. Just tell me what you want to say. Yes. I'm cool with you just telling me in just 5 seconds. Then I'm cool.
And I think it's important to note too, the method I'm taking for my business, for the personal development business that I'm kind of launching into 2025, is that it's an emphasis away from social media. So for me, social media is a drain. It's a brain drain. Yeah. If you look at what I'm creating in my life and I'm creating with my energy, I create much less when I'm consuming a lot of social media. And I've done some different split tests. And if you put Facebook or Instagram on your phone and you scroll, you can get into a trance and you can scroll for a long time. Nobody is surprised with what I'm saying, but here's what's very surprising. If you open the same apps from your laptop and you scroll on your laptop, it doesn't happen. Something's going on with the phone scroll.
It's the thumb scroll. Too easy.
Interactive, or there's something about the way the eye stimulus. I would challenge anyone.
Now, you know what it is? It's very small, straight to the point, and you have a little space. And because everything is in this tiny space, including your hand, it's so convenient. It's no effort.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. It's less effort.
When I never want to try to make someone feel bad for their social media use. I'm just saying, if you notice you're already feeling bad, it's not your fault. It's how they've designed it, and you can still stay somewhat connected by using a different device. It works for me. It may not work for everybody else. I do plan to use potentially some ads on Facebook and Instagram to draw some people into my programs. So it's not like I'm against them. It's a great way that we stay connected, but how much time we're using versus how much time we're creating, right? It's like that consume versus create monster that I feel like if we're really honest with ourselves, we feel so much better when we put the emphasis on our creations, whether that's in our home, in our business, with our families versus that consuming, which there's no end product. You know, you don't end up saying, I feel so good after I scrolled for 2 hours. Nobody says that.
You're totally right. No, that doesn't happen at all. Sylvia, unfortunately, we're going to have to put a line in the sand. It is what it is. I'm so sorry.
No,
we haven't spoken enough, and that's how I feel. I feel like we've been robbed. You know, like someone stole something and we don't know what it is. That's how I feel anyway, listeners. How can the listeners get hold of you? What's your website and etc.? All those wonderful things. How can they get hold of you?
Yes, so sylviahall.com is the great way to connect with me personally. liftednaturals.com is our supplement website. Unfortunately, we do only ship within the United States at this point. And then Honeypot Publishing is my coloring book and gratitude journal and all of that fun stuff. So those 3 websites are the key of where I'm pouring my energy right now.
Okay, and listeners, as always, I'll have the links down below so you can click, copy and paste to your heart's content, and you're able to connect with Sylvia. As you can feel the vibration from her, can't you? The positiveness, you know, why not go with the flow? Go on, you know, you want to contact her, you know want to see what she's doing. So, but Sylvia, thank you for your time. You've been wonderful, and thank you for your space too.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for the opportunity.
And with that said, everyone, sayonara.